Hello, everybody, and welcome to Tuesday. Gonna have some nice, chill painting times today. Looking forward to it. Hope y'all are doing well out there. All right. I think we're good to go. Switch it over to the art cam. The art cam yet lives. All right, so today we're going to be working on an old piece. And I think what I want to do is put it up on screen so that everyone can see it and kind of follow along with the vision. So the first thing I have to do is track that sucker down, which shouldn't be too hard. I've got a big folder on my computer that's just my old paintings. So this one is from 2018, 5 years ago, if you can believe it. But the folder is also... I painted a lot when I first started painting. I painted hundreds and hundreds of things just to practice and learn and get better. So it is quite a task going through the folder, trying to find the special little guy. I also painted a lot of sunsets. All right, here it is. It's going to appear very big on screen at first, I'm sure, and then I'm going to have to shrink it down. Sure enough. Let's shrink you down. Make it moderately small and put it up in the top corner. Just so you can get an idea where my head is at when I approach certain things. Now I do have my pencils here, my water-soluble pencils. I've also got a hard lead pencil, which I probably don't want to use for this one. So I'm going to go with just the blue. And there's not a ton I need to really block out in this, other than the horizon line of the trees where the sunset is. But first I have to determine what I like about the original, what I dislike, what I would like to change. There's a lot I do like about it. I like the color. First and foremost, I definitely want to keep that bright kind of pink sky with the purple clouds. And I like how pronounced the sun is. But I also don't love the sharp contrast between the sun and the sky. I like all the little lights. I think I did those with just Posca pens, paint markers inside the darker parts of the tree line. It's kind of a bit of a rocky cliff with trees around it. At least that's how I pictured it in my mind when I originally painted this. I remember trying to go for kind of a deserty feel. So, most important thing, do I want to raise or lower the horizon line? I mean, that's pretty fundamental to the painting process. I think I want to take it down just a little tiny bit and also add more variation on that horizon. I do like how it dips down a little bit. And it's kind of interesting doing this from not not even memory necessarily, but like not from a reference. And the original piece definitely wasn't from reference. I can tell just in the way that it's composed, the way that the clouds and trees look. It feels very like painting the iconography of a thing rather than painting what you see. I feel like that stuff is very evident when someone paints from imagination, unless they've done a lot of very concentrated study, and at this point I had not done any concentrated study at all. So we've got our little kind of scraggly trees. And then the sun. I know I want to be here. I'm not going to sketch it because I don't want there to be any sort of visible line. I would have to scrub pretty hard with water to get rid of it, even though it's a water-soluble pencil. I definitely want that nice, dark horizon line, tree line, which I can paint on with a lot more opacity after I get the sky settled in. That's going to be the most important thing initially. So now we can lay down the colors that we want, and this is going to be extra easy, I think, because the painting has already been painted. I know that I want to keep the general color balance from the original piece, so I'm going to get the exact same range of colors in there. Most notably the Opera Rose, which was used quite frequently in my early paintings. I absolutely love this color. Get some permanent white. Probably don't need too much of that. We'll be using a lot of pure pigment and maybe creating a bit of a gradient with the pink. I mean, it's so dark. It'd be nice to build it out, especially on the outside edge, with a little bit of maybe limb darkening. Just get a slightly darker color out there. And for that, something in the blue range that's really dark and deep. Maybe this ultramarine. Actually, no, let's go more saturated. Let me dig out my purple. Something I don't use too much because I tend to mix my own purples, but I have a spectrum violet here that's very vibrant. So just a little bit of that. And I definitely do want some primary blue for those sort of purple rocks. And although I almost never do this, I do also want some ivory black. So I need that foreground area to be very dark. But I'll also be building to it a bit more gradually in this painting. I want to have more atmosphere, I think. The original piece, the strongest negative critique I could give it really is that it feels very flat, which can definitely work for a style. But I know just from being the person that painted the original, that was not what I was going for. I wasn't trying to go for some kind of a style. I was trying to make something that looked like ultra realistic, not like realism, but like surrealism, realism plus boosted, a sense of something magical. Which is, you know, a lot to put on the plate of someone who had only been painting for not even a year at that point, I don't think. Just shy of a year, maybe. All right. Now let's get some water. I'm going to take some clean water and just wash over the whole thing. Okay, so we've got the basic sketch idea established. We've got the water down. It is not going to take very long for this water to dissipate because it is incredibly dry in the office. So I'm going to wait like a couple more seconds and then load up some paint. I want to start light and go into dark with the sun. So actually I'm going to get a little bit of yellow as well. Just a little bit of yellow, and we'll go yellow-white just so we can establish where the sun is in the picture. So get that white, get a lot of that yellow. And then we'll paint around where the sun is. So the sun I want to be like here, in that bottom corner. I'm going to push it off a little bit more to the right than is in the original painting. But I definitely like the big shape of the sun there. And then I'm going to dip it a little more orange as it gets to the corners. I'm going to go even bolder and bolder and just mix through. This is something I was pretty afraid to do back when I originally made this painting. Felt like too much work to subtly change the color on my brush. I just went in with a bunch of like big color blocks. All right. And I'll work relatively fast across these spaces here. Now I'm going to clean the brush off. And grab a little bit of that yellow and that pink and mix them together. Even a tap of that white, so that I can mix some more of that color back up into what I've already put down. And I'm trying to drag across in pretty big strokes here so that I don't get any stroke marks or brush marks. Except in the very broadest parts, you know, you get the occasional one, but most of those will melt away. Okay, now back to my white and yellow, the original mixture. I'm going to go a little bit more white than yellow for this. And I'll keep it nice and loose. It's going to be a pretty watered down mix. Alright, so now that I have the sun shaped out, I can go back. I'm going to clean off this area here in the palette. And we can go full force with that pink color. pink all the way. Just pure, bold opera rose. Always such a wonderful color to see in its raw state. I don't use it like raw very much because it is so bold. Just incredibly, incredibly bold color. And the paper now is already drying. So I'm going to take the clean water brush and wet that surface down again. Okay. Now I'll just dampen my brush. Make sure this mixture is nice and loose. We're going to blend together down into the orange. I want to make sure that there's not much pigment in my brush at all. When I go back down to blend, I just want to make sure that I have a damp brush. Now I can start building together a darker color, so I'm going to dip into the blue. I'll use my aqua first. We'll get that sort of deep purple, and then I'll build off of that with a little bit of primary blue. Gentle purple sky. Now, this is definitely the kind of thing where if you have a slanted desk, this is really great for that because you can tip or have your work tipped. I didn't think too hard about my subject matter today, so I probably would have taped it to a piece of cardboard so I could just tilt the whole thing up, and then you let gravity bring the water down with it, and it tends to blend down into itself. You can still do it manually with a brush on the page, but you'll always get a smoother effect when gravity's doing the work, because it goes molecule by molecule. Alright, I'm going to switch up my brushes now. I'm going to go for my big writing brush, my Nomura calligraphy style. And I'm going to start building out some cloud shapes. So for this, I'm basically going back, reversing the order that we put our colors together today. So I'm going to go back to that yellowish golden. And I already need more opera rose. You can never have too much in a picture like this, I suppose. It's going to be a beautiful looking palette by the end. But it makes this sort of striking orange. Hello, hello, welcome in. Hope you're doing well today. So for the clouds, I'm just thinking about the light source, the sun, how everything is radiating out from that sort of central point. And the most important thing is I don't want to jump straight to the darkest shadow. I want to save that until the last possible moment. It's really wild when I look back at the original piece, because I definitely had like an idea for it, what I wanted it to be. I think the most important thing that I lacked was any kind of patience. I wanted everything to be done in like 20 minutes. At that point, all I had really known was digital art, where you have access to a faster result, or at least a more workable result faster. And it was tough, it was tough to break myself out of that kind of mind space. Because at that point I had been, a professional digital artist for more than 10 years. So having to relearn and rethink the way that I approach art was very baffling and very, very tough. It was only when I learned to just let go of any sense of ego over a finished piece that I was able to even begin to grow or learn. And then I became voracious for it. I just wanted to paint all the time. when I made the actual decision, because I dabbled many times over the years, I'd pick up a marker here and there, but it had gotten so bad for me when I was so entrenched in digital art that, I was afraid to draw in front of people on paper. I was afraid to draw with a pencil or a pen. If we were at conventions or just out to dinner and a bunch of people were drawing because we were all artists, I'd be like, I'm fine. I don't really want people seeing me, draw, because it was such an imposter syndrome thing. I mean, I was at that point and had been a working artist in the industry for quite a while, but I couldn't draw on paper comfortably in front of people. So it was very stifling and very intimidating, and the imposter syndrome was so real. And it wasn't really a reaction to that made me want to try it. It was more like a hobby thing. I had been so stressed out from working, and all I'd done was digital, so what is as far away from that as I can get while still positively expressing myself. And that's when I decided to splash around with art. And at that point, it wasn't about trying to learn it. It wasn't about trying to, get better, improve, not even learn the fundamentals or anything. At that point, it was purely I want to paint for stress relief. I want to just splash around in paint so that I can not be stressed about, work stuff, because it didn't feel anything like what I was doing for work. And then after I painted for a couple of months without any pressure on myself or externally, I wasn't posting many of the things that I made. It was just in a sketchbook. It was just making a mess. And because it wasn't, seeking external validation, that wasn't, coming or any of that kind of stuff, I was able to just stick with it because it was just a personal thing. And then after doing it for several months, I was I kind of enjoy doing this way more than any other type of art. I think I want to actually, get better, improve. I want this to, maybe be my main thing. And then I fell hard into that world, just because it was more my passion than a capitalist pursuit, I guess. It wasn't something that I was doing just to, put food on the table or keep the lights on. Although eventually it did become that way, and I was very careful about that process because I was scared. Once you make that your thing, once you make that your day job, your relationship will change. But thankfully I took it slow and was able to transition in such a way that it wasn't a burden. It was just fun. Became much easier for me to think in that way. And it was also just shocking to me that there was art that could be fun. I had gotten to such a point, I had gotten to such a low point with art as work, the art as work pipeline, that I was a bit disillusioned. I was burnt out. I was a little sour on it. I didn't want to draw for fun, even digitally, outside of work hours. But when I discovered painting, I was like, oh wait, it can actually be fun. It's all about the mindset. Which is a very difficult thing to explain, I find, because it's not me saying that digital art isn't fun, because I know for a lot of people digital art is way more fun for them than traditional art, and I can totally understand why. It's just for me, I had made it mentally such a burden for myself that I wasn't loving it. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Although I will say now I have a much healthier relationship to digital art. Alright, so I want to really make the light pop with both the clouds in front of the sun and also the tree line. So I'm going to go back to my big brush And I'm also going to wet the paper again, because it is bone dry down here now. Fully wet this down. So how do you do it now? The combinations of work and the fun with art. I mean, it's difficult, and I think it's probably a different journey for every single person that makes art, especially if you make art for a living. For me, it was dividing my time way more strictly. It wasn't letting my work bleed into my non-work time. It was allowing and forgiving myself the time and lack of pressure to create in my free time without it needing to be a product. That was a big one, and that was a very hard one for me to overcome. Because especially when you're on the grind, you feel like everything needs to be, you know, every painting needs to be sold in order for it to be valid. But this is definitely not the case. Yeah, giving yourself the time and the grace to make quote-unquote mistakes with art is incredibly important, and it is one of the only ways that you will ever get better. and become more confident in making art and become faster, which is usually something that a lot of folks are looking to do, is increase their speed and increase their proficiency and their confidence. And you don't get to that point if you don't make mistakes, quote unquote. You have to be able to do that. And a lot of that is just messing around, working on a piece that might not go anywhere, but ultimately you learn one thing from it. Yeah, can't learn if you don't make mistakes, and sometimes one of those mistakes isn't a mistake at all, and people love that mistake in your art. That's true. That's very true. A very, very awesome thing that I have learned pretty much primarily from painting, especially doing more abstract stuff, is how much a viewer brings of themselves to you. Like, I used to think that it was a one-way street when I was making things. I had to communicate something, and if someone didn't get it, it bounced off them, then I had failed. But there are so many pieces now, in fact, almost all of my work, where I leave stuff ambiguous or loose, and then I tighten up others, and although I have a general idea for plan of focus, I know that a viewer is going to bring so much of themselves to the picture. You meet in the middle, and you have a two-way conversation. And people will find things in your art that strike them, that they find inspirational or cool or whatever. And you definitely can't plan for that when you're making things, but you can leave parts of your artwork more open to interpretation and allow someone to bring themselves to your art, instead of just trying to dictate with incredible specificity what it is they're supposed to get, quote unquote. And if they don't get it, then that's their loss. Like, that's no way to be. So now I'm trying to build up that atmosphere that I talked about very early on. One of the things that I like as an idea in the original is the light is fading and, slowly everything is kind of being darkened down to zero. But what I want to express much more, and I think was part of my original expression, especially with that blazing bright sky in the original, was just this swell of light over a horizon. But I didn't really have it, especially the technique in my head for making atmospheric lighting back then. So I'm just like, well, I'll just paint it black. And it kind of cuts off the upper half from the lower half in a way that I don't really find super pleasing. So now I'm finally able to have that light spill out over the horizon and make those trees light up. With this kind of fog and ambience and all those nice things that light can do. And I'm going to darken the area in the extreme foreground much more. I'll be using that ivory black. I can't do that until the paint dries a lot more, which, with the way things are going, shouldn't take too much longer. Alright, let's clean off the palette of all my blue so I can put some warm color back in the mix. All right. Almost ready to add those darks to the foreground. Thank you, Circle Fruit. I think so too. I mean, when you're starting off on especially a new art medium, I still remember getting frustrated pretty frequently when I had an idea in my head and then the finished thing didn't look exactly like that. It was very easy to get frustrated, never truly discouraged, because I knew that everything was building towards something else, but you can't help but feel a little bit like, it's not exactly what I was picturing. Whereas now it's definitely a lot easier to execute on an idea, which is nice. So this one is now, I'm going to call done. I'm very happy with it, and I wanted to keep it nice and loose just like the original. So I won't bother going into any more specificity on the details. But I do have more time allotted for streaming today, so what I might do, since things seem pleasantly sleepy over here on YouTube, and this was the only idea that I had for today's YouTube session, maybe we'll take it over to Twitch and see what the folks on Twitch are up to, see if they want to watch some painting as well. So if you are here and you aren't subscribed to my Twitch, I shouldn't say subscribed, following my Twitch, please feel free, twitch.tv/EiffelArt, and maybe we'll do another painting. Maybe I'll dig out another one. Maybe I'll dig out an even earlier painting from 2017, the year I began painting for the first time. But if you decide to come over, that would be great. If you don't, I hope you have a great rest of your day/week. Thank you so much for joining me for this chill painting session. I'm going to turn down this wacky contrast. But yeah, let's go see what's happening on the other side. I'll be back up in like 5 minutes. It doesn't take much. All my stream stuff is already running. So let's check it out.